Hello everyone, my name is Saksham Dikshit and this is my channel Pentest Diaries. So today I'll make another video and this video is totally different. This is not at all be a tutorial video and this is nothing like any creative idea or knowledge share video. This is a podcast. Finally, I'm launching a podcast and this is season 1. And the first video I'm inviting one of my friend Abhishek Dwivedi. He's an iOS developer. He's worked in multiple organizations so far. He worked for renowned organizations and working on multiple projects. And currently, he's working like a solution architect in a current role. And in that, he's taking care of multiple things about it. So, as I think, even this is a pentester the channel, but still, I think like I just have to get introduced or just call some developer itself as I have to take care and I have to know the pain of, and even I just want you to know about the pain of the developer who what type of pain they are facing it, like when they have developed something and as a pen testers we have identified something on it and a sleepless night the developers having it just to sort it out that issue, and in case of zero day attacks also. So that is one of the things I just want my friend to be on this podcast, and we'll just try to understand all the possibilities. Even this is not only for the professional, this video is starting for even for the beginners, and then I can say that it may be a possibility couple of things you will you will get the information about it in later phase itself. When you think if you are working like a professional and you already worked in that section for it, but couple of things you're not aware about it as you are getting a views from multiple guys itself, and even working as a security professional, then in that case you came to know about a lot of things about it. That's my motive. I wanted to convey the stuffs from my friend to everyone so that even a beginner can get the information from this video and even a professional also get the information about it, what are the things you can improve it. And even at the end of this videos we'll definitely try to cover like what are the possibilities and what's the future aspects of the iOS development. Everything I'll try to get it covered in this video, so be with me in this video itself and let me go for that podcast now. So Abhishek, welcome on my channel Pentest Diaries, and I think you're the first one be on the podcast. So I'm just asking the first question to you. You started working in this iOS development for almost 12 years as per my knowledge. But if I ask you like when you start journey in this field, when you thinking about like you have to start working as an iOS developer, and the first time you heard about from someone like this is also one of the thing which ways that you can work like everyone when working in a software development or working like a computer science guy, that person having an understanding like either they have to go for the C++, going for the Java. How you think about iOS development? That is a totally a niche type of technology. How exactly you have heard about it and when you start working on it, and is it from the college, is it from the school, or it's after that college? Yeah.
Sure, Saksham. So firstly, thanks for having me. I'm glad to know that this is the first podcast, and I am you invited me. So thanks for having me. Uh, how did I got into this? So I did my engineering in from Chennai in computer science and computer science, and the seventh semester I got the placement. I for by Infosys by college placements, and eighth semester I spent in the Mysore Infosys campus, and there we learned about various technologies. And then once the 4 months of internship was over, few of us were asked about the preferences. So depends on the ranks and all of that. And then I was one of them who was asked for preferences. I was given Java, .NET, and mobile applications in general. And mobile applications, we had Apple and Android. And back then, it was really trending. It was sounded really cool, and I was pretty sure that going forward, the it is going to be mobile applications. Maybe 5 years or 10 years from now, back in 2012, and I did that. I chose that because I found it cool. I found it interesting, and 12 years later, I actually now feel that made the right choice. Your question on how do we choose the technology stack if someone is now entering, is it is extremely important that the view should not be just the current landscape, but also we have to think about what the tech stack may look like 5 years from now, right? 10 years from now, because we have to stay relevant, and we have to stay uh, into some of those emerging technologies. It's extremely important. So that is definitely something that we should consider while picking up tech stack.
Okay, thanks. So, like, as you worked in this field itself almost for 12 years, so like, if I talk about like, what are the changes you have seen it like when you started and now, like, what are the changes you are seeing in the iOS environment? Like, is it in the platform itself you're seeing it? What type of changes you seeing it? Like, is it like I can say the platform is now favorable to the developers, or is it bit complex? What's your opinion on it?
Oh, Apple in general works very hard in streamlining the development uh, environment for its development, for the developers. So when I started back in 2012, I started in, at times when we used to manage memory by ourselves. So we have to create an object and we have to release an object. So a lot of things were quite manual. The language was, Objective C. Again, a lot of optimizations were required. So I started there. And now, when I look into how the Apple ecosystem is from the development point of view, it has completely changed. So, if you see earlier, the language was Objective C. Apple came up in, I think it was 2014 when they came up with a new language called Swift. They made it open source, and now most of the applications are now in Swift. We had auto layouts for screen designings. Apple, came up in one of the WWDC sessions and said, what? Let's get rid of auto layouts, and now we have a Swift UI framework, right? So things have changed very drastically from the time it started and from time it is now, and it is very streamlined, optimized, and even the language updates, the iOS updates. There are very frequent updates and a lot of exciting updates from all from the language point of view and also from the iOS point of view. Every year, Apple releases Apple has a WWDC event where they announce the new frameworks and the exciting launches that they have, not from the product standpoint but from the development point of view, particularly frameworks.
Okay, great about it. Okay, so which is your favorite architecture? Like, since so far, like you have worked in on the multiple architectures so far. So especially in this development itself, which is your favorite architecture which you have worked on it and which you like to prefer always? Like other than that, whatever the demand, whatever the requirement is it from the client or from that vendor itself, it totally depends on it. But the thing is that which is your favorite app and you're comfortable when you're working for that architecture? Yeah.
Sure, Saksham. So I would uh, say that a lot of this architecture decisions are very specific to a use case. There are definitely a lot of design patterns that are standard and recommended. But again, it all depends on. I don't think that there is something that is a solution that fits in all cases. So how we start is first we take a system architecture, which helps us understand what are the different systems the product is going to interact with, and then how this product is going to be used. So a lot of times it might be a standalone app. A lot of times it can be an module which can be integrated with other applications, right? So the architecture again has to be has to be all of these has to be taken into consideration while designing the overall architecture. And then there are design patterns. So MVVM is definitely one of the MVVM and Viper are definitely one of the key and popular design patterns that we have. I am a huge fan of MVVM because it helps me segregate the models, the view models, and the views, and helps me follow the solid principles really well. Each of that has its own responsibility. The classes are short. And it's extremely easy to write your unit test because all of that business logic stays in one place, which is the view model. So yeah, if you think about popular design patterns, I think MVVM is definitely something that I am a fan of.
Okay, great. Okay, so if I was ask you, like you have done the development a lot, like which is the best feature which you have created so far in your life? Like you think like this is the thing till yet you have created and you like a lot. Like any feature which you have created for any client, and if you can share that feature which you have created from the scratch, and you think this is the best feature I have created so far. Anything?
Okay, interesting. So I think a couple, but something that I'm really proud of would be one of the clients, that was American Express. The I The challenge that we had was there was a lot of restrictions in terms of what tools you can use, right? So let's say even from a JSON that is being returned by an API from as a response, we were not, because it's the banking domain, right? We were not supposed to use the JSON formatters and things like that. So and we were not, the usage of libraries were also very restricted. So one, I do remember we writing our own, uh, creating our own library for the card scanning feature, which actually is quite complex, but we wanted to do that from scratch. So that was one which was extremely interesting and also very challenging, because it is actually pretty easy to use a existing framework, but when it comes to developing something from scratch and then using that, and then what we implemented, what we came up with, the framework was also used by other applications, right? So that was something which was pretty interesting and challenging.
Okay, great. Now I'm just going to the another section where we just talk about the pen testers. So, like when you're dealing with the pen testers, when you have created any product from the scratch, you're going for the testing. Definitely, it's I'm talking about the pen testing itself. When you are going with your product, is going with the pen testing. So, how you deal with the pen testers, and which is one of the thing which you don't like about the pen testers so far itself, and how do you think like pen testing is one of the favorable point for any development before releasing to the production direct? Like what's your opinion on it when any product is going with the pen testing, and you think like anything is appropriate in place? You think like pen testing is not at all be a solution which should not be get it in a system before getting released, or unit testing, or just a get it scan your product is just a one thing, or you wanted a thorough testing from the pen testers on the product before releasing it to the market?
Sure, Saksham. So uh, overall, the focus on quality and security is something that every developer, right from beginning. So it is not something that you develop something and then you consider going through a pen test or even the other scans. This is something that has to be considered right from day one. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of few products that were designed from scratch, and also if we are working on an existing products where where you are adding, enhancing, or adding features, it is extremely important that the focus is given on quality and security. And as of now, we I'm following three tools. One is, so we do have in our CI/CD pipelines, we do have integrations with SonarQube and Coverity. I have used checkmarks earlier in one of the for one of the clients. And then for regarding pen testers, so these are the scans that we follow rigorously. And then so every commit that we do, the the scans are done, and then a report gets generated. And if there are any high critical or blocker issues, that has to be fixed before we merge that in code in the develop branch. So that is something that we follow. And then regarding the pen testing, that is something that we do for at the frequency is something that can be decided based on the kind of changes that you have. It can be done before release, it can be done mid release. There may be one or two pen test during development release. We have a pen test team. I'm a huge fan of the pen test team that I work with. They are the inputs that I have got from the pen testing is actually pretty cool, something that is definitely very helpful. And and there are certain things, right? I, even as a product lead, I need to make sure that my product is something that, is something, which cannot be hackable, right? I have to make sure if I build a product which, someone can just get into and do a man in the middle attack and, um, interrupt the network connections and stuff, I would definitely would not want that, right? So pen test is definitely something that is the key uh, to, address these security issues. So yeah, initially the scans, that is extremely important, and then the pen testing is something that, you must have for a product.
Okay, great, great. So, if I'll ask you with that in the same section, pen testing itself. So, any vulnerability which is identified by the pen tester so far in your product, and which is a challenging for you, like it will take almost a week or more than that. Like I'm not sure like whether it will take a week for you. Take example, any critical or high vulnerability which is get identified in your product. Or in the second phase of my question, I'm asking like if that vulnerability get identified when your product is already live, it's already present and users are using it, so how you deal with that situation, like as you already having like this is a bigger problem for the developers when the product is already live, and especially in the context of the iOS development, anything, any 0 day, anything, something which is not at all be patched very fast, then in that case how you deal with this situation as a developer, like how exactly, what type of strategies you are making it at the time when you are just identified with this is the vulnerability and reported by any any red teamers, any pen testers, and they are providing a POC also, but you don't have any appropriate solution as this is dependent on the framework. So how you deal with that?
Awesome. Great question, actually. So, firstly, there are two aspects of it, right? The issues that are raised by the product, which we usually take care during before the release, and even if in case there are some issues that was leaked into the production, we do hotfix and we do that. That is something that it is in our hands and something that we are in control of. And then there is something about the framework vulnerabilities, right? So if, let's say, there are some security issues that are identified in the latest version of iOS, which is something that may happen. So you develop a product, it's there on the App Store, people are downloading it and they're updating their OS versions, right? And then let's say the latest version of OS has some, vulnerability that has caused some vulnerability in your application. That is something that happens. Firstly, there are again two aspects of it. As soon as we have a beta release, we make sure that our application, even during the beta release, we test that with all of the new updates that are being released by Apple. And so that is something that we do as a practice. And then sometimes it also, Apple also takes these very seriously. So you might have seen there's a lot of security patches that Apple also comes with when to address these vulnerabilities. So yeah, there are two aspects for every iOS release, even the minor ones. We do have our product go through the pen test again for those versions, and if there are issues, we address those as a hotfix. And then also Apple also releases, and then we take it this way.
Okay, great, great. Okay, now I'm going to the next section for it, and where exactly I'm just asking, like, as you started your journey as a developer, then you have moved to the lead section, and then now, after having experience for 12 years itself, now you're working like an architect, or I can say that maybe like a manager itself. So, like, when you're dealing with your team, you work like a team member earlier, and now you work like you have your own team also. So, like, how exactly you are managing all the stuffs in your team, the team bonding especially is one of the thing as a software developer. Like pentester, I know it very well, like how like we have a team bonding, but as a software developer, when you're dealing with your team as a manager, as a solution architect on a multiple roles, how you deal with your team and how you make a bond between your team members so that they are updated, they never feel like something is going out of the box and they're not having an appropriate solution for it. So how you maintain the balance between all the situation with the critical situation when you develop something and it's not going well? Yeah.
Sure, Saksham. So I see two aspects of this. One is the environment, the culture that you foster in a professional environment, and then secondly the tech part of it, right? So from the tech part perspective, I really think that it is extremely important that the friction is less, and the only way you can have that less friction within during development is by streamlining as much as possible, right? So firstly, the focus has to be in streamlining current landscape, whatever you have, whatever you see in a project. And how do you do that? You try to automate things as much as possible. Even for us, even the code review, we have tried to automate as much as possible. We have the static analyzing tools and all of that in place. We have pipelines, so only once those initial automated code reviews are done, then the merge requests are raised. So firstly, by streamlining the tech stack and the development environment, so you have less friction. Secondly, from the environment perspective, so this is something that we follow rigorously. We have religiously, we follow something called a seek, speak, listen. So we are open to, we feel free to seek any input that we need. We are, we open to speak, we open speaking any issues or any feedback that we have. There's something that we don't like, you have to have an environment where all the fellow developers are feel very safe sharing their concerns, and then listening is something that is extremely crucial. You are anyone here, right, at a senior role, it is extremely important that you are someone who are available for the team and listen carefully the feedback or the issues that the team is facing, and then act accordingly.
Okay, great, great. Okay, now I'll ask you like whatever the knowledge you have on it so far. So, what exactly the medium, like where exactly you learn these things about the iOS development, latest trend, whatever is it like you have learning? Like, what are the medium from where exactly you are learning it? Is it with the social media or somewhere else? You are. What are the forums for it? Where exactly you having your existence? From where you are getting that feeds, learning the new stuffs about it, or you are just going through the documentation still view of the iOS development. Yeah.
Sure, sure, Saksham. So as of now, we know that the kind of information overload we have here, right? And for anything, you get so many tutorials, and it is like actually so many books. So it is actually extremely difficult to choose the right sources, and is very crucial as well. Having the right source is extremely important as and a reference. My references has been firstly the WWDC sessions that Apple comes up with every year, which where they talk about the new frameworks. So in the Apple developer site, they have these videos published where they talk about these new frameworks in a very detailed manner. Then secondly, I have the Stanford lectures. So every year or two, Stanford releases an updated version of their iOS course. Current released version has Swift UI, and Combine and all the latest tech stack. So second is definitely going is my Stanford course that is available on YouTube for free, which is amazing. One of the best course that I always make sure that as soon as that is published, that is on my priority list. And then I definitely go through the documentation. I feel that it is extremely important for us to still go through the documentation of these frameworks, and only with that we will get a very good understanding of what the framework is capable of doing. So even now, currently I am working on a feature where I have to do a lot of plottings. There was a new framework released by Apple from iOS 16, which is Swift Charts. Currently it is extremely easy, you can just write it in chat gpt, or there are a couple of tutorials where how do you plot a line chart or something using Swift charts. But that approach is going to be very limited. So whatever the tutorial covers, you would only learn that those APIs. But then that is the reason why it is extremely important to go through the documentation, because then only you'll know what are the APIs that the framework provides and what are the customization opportunities and all of that. So yeah, these three mostly section.
Great, 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 Abhishek. Okay, so now we just come to the last portion of our video, and where I just want to know what exactly the future as a developer you think, like, as of the future of the iOS development. And if I talk about Gen AI is already released in the market, it's always been a system. It's almost from last 2 or 3 years itself. Do you think like Gen AI can take over the stuff of the software development? As per my view, I don't think so. It will take away where exactly the Gen AI will be getting integrated in iOS development, and how it is any different type of privileges you're getting it with a Gen AI, like whatever the comforts you're getting it from the Gen AI to be getting integrated with the iOS development, and what are the disadvantages for it? Like if you are utilizing it in Gen AI, using the Gen AI in your development, then what are the disadvantages as per your opinion, and what's the future of iOS development? Yeah.
Sure, sure. So interesting. So, firstly, I'm someone who's very bullish about the whole Gen AI thing, right? I think that this is something that this is the future. I feel that a lot of things are going to change for the developers. Even currently, we have that in that has become an integral part of the development, even in our company. Something that we have to be really careful when we use any Gen AI tool is that any input that you put in a model, that is something that will go to their servers, right? So if for example, if there is a company code where you are where you want some inputs or something, and you put on a Gen A, that is going to be an OpenAI server. So that is something that you'll have to be really careful about. We and then there are enterprise versions of these tools, right? So we use both. We have our own OpenAI portal where within the company where and that is an enterprise version, of course, which basically makes sure that the data is not gone onto the servers. And so that is one. And then we have GitHub Copilot, also something which has become an integral part of the development. The way I see it is the things are definitely going to change, and it will change for good for the developers. So as things move, I don't see that the developers are going to sit and write a unit test for code. So I have been in that place where I had to write all of that unit test by myself, and had to make sure that it has 90% of code coverage. With these tools, I can just select a function and I can just say right click, and I can say write a unit test for a function, and then it generates. So things like these are definitely going to be very easy. And the way I see it is the focus is going to shift, and not just about iOS. I think in development in general, the focus is going to shift from developing a feature to writing business logic, business cases. And I think the screen designs or the integrations are definitely going to be something that is going to be very streamlined, is going to be very easy going forward. But the focus is going to shift towards, and it should shift towards, solution designing, right? Feasibility analysis, solution designing, building a system. How do we have scalability, security? These things is something that is not, chat gpt cannot suggest, right? Because this is something that is very specific to a project. So yeah, I see that as some like a pair programmer, which is definitely going to help write the code, but definitely not going to replace any of it. I think that we might become even more efficient programmers by if we use that really well.
Okay, great, great. So before concluding this podcast, I just want to know, like, what's your concluding keywords which you want to get it conveyed to the users? Like, if anyone start working in this field, or if a person is just a graduate and that person is willing to work in iOS development, so what are the key things that person will have to, like, as per my understanding, this is the field where we required a laptop of iOS itself. We required the devices of iOS based. So that is one of the things, like development in the Android is one of the thing which we can do it very easily. most of the stuffs are freely available on internet. But in case of iOS, everything is stuck with that devices itself. We have to purchase those devices. So if anyone is willing to start working in iOS development from the scratch, or the person is just a college pass out, what are the prerequisites that person should know it first, and where exactly the person can go it further with that, like the step by steps, what are the things the person have to do it just to reach to that level where the person can join and ready for any organization to work as an iOS developer.
Sure. I would say the only prerequisite that is required is the zeal and the intention to get into a field. Yes, you are absolutely right. We do need a MacBook, an Apple system to develop with, to develop on, but we do not need the iPhone or an iPad to test that. So Xcode has those simulators, and those are good enough for a development environment. And then once, and definitely for learning. For I have there are a lot of college grads who have reached out to me in the past for inputs, and what I have seen, what they have done is, let's say the MacBook, right? It costs maybe 1.5 or 2 lakhs to procure. There are also an option to rent it out for, let's say, 5 or 8 k, and then let's say 2 3 months of course, which you can pursue, and then get into a organization. So that is definitely a something that is challenging to have a Mac dev, and that too in the initial phase. And yeah, I agree that having get into Android is simpler because you can do that from your Windows machines. But yeah, that is something that I think can be taken care of. I think that the intention is something which is really important, and I would also suggest that not just iOS, the view should be mobile application space. So I don't think that limiting ourselves to a one particular stack is something that is going to be very helpful. So have a priority, have a significant domain, and focus on one particular of these areas. Let's say Apple might become your specialization, but then we also have to have a very good understanding of the other mobile space, Android or React Native or Flutter for the hybrid application development. That is definitely something which we should consider. And yeah, last notes, I think that I would definitely would like to recommend or suggest that the learning is something that is should never stop. The learning and the innovation should never stop. The culture of innovation, right from the thinking, the thoughts, is something which is extremely crucial. And also maybe having a mentor helps a lot. So I I have a mentor, and I've got great inputs whenever I am stuck. I'm not sure how to move forward, and the mentor may not really be in your area, in your domain as well, right? Mentor can be anyone whom you look up to, and I think having a mentor helps a lot. So yeah, maybe learning, innovating, and having a mentor helps.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, be on the call, and you have shared a lot of information what everyone is looking for it. Even like before joining this call, having this podcast, and I'm not bit having a worked in iOS development, so I haven't worked in it. So that was the reason I'm not having a lot of knowledge about it. But as I'm having a conversation with you, like now I'm having an insight of the iOS development and how exactly things are going on, and I'm sure like whoso the person is seeing this video, that person get the information about it. And if they like to go further in this field, definitely they can learn things and they can go it further with that. At least a roadmap is signed, or I can say that make it from this video, and the person can start working that section. Even I think don't think so, like as you have given an idea about it, like even if you don't have the device, you can rent it the device. That's also one of the option for the person. Like if you think like 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs rupees or 1 lakh also is not at all be a point for you just to get it invest. You can rent it the device for a month and you can utilize it, and later phase itself definitely whatever the organization you joining it, they will provide you the devices. So there is no need to purchase it from the scratch. Like I thought earlier, like we require the devices to be get it purchased, but that's also one of the option for it. So thank you so much be on the podcast. I really like, enjoy a lot, and even learn a lot from your side, and definitely like viewers will learn a lot from your side. Thank you so much once again. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, Aksham. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye. Bye bye.